Ho 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 ho, you're like 45 years old and you play video games.
This is something I've heard a lot as of late. Now, it mainly comes from left-wing wokey trolls and haters, and when it comes to trolls and haters, there's a lot of overlap there. But still, the sentiment comes up from time to time. So the question is there something weird or out of place when a 45-year-old man or woman plays video games? Well, I'm going to argue that not only is it not weird, it's actually quite normal. I'm Fox, and this is RealMarcFoxx, your home for rational, reasonable, real gamers. Let's roll that intro.
This is the final battle.
Now, when I say it's normal, what do I mean by that? Well, what I mean is that it makes perfect sense. A lot of young people that play games who are in their teens or early 20s may think of a 45-year-old man as old. I can tell you right now, being in my 40s, it's not quite old yet. Even in the 50s isn't quite as old as I would consider to be old. But then again, the older you get, the older your concept of old is. So why is it not weird at all for a 45-year-old man to play games? Why is it normal? Well, let's think about this. If a person were born in the late 70s or early 80s, like me and my siblings, well, that means we grew up playing video games. We grew up in the era of arcades, Atari, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and so on. Yes, I got an NES, Nintendo Entertainment System, when I was just a little boy, and I played the heck out of that thing. My first gaming memory is playing Burger Time on the Atari 2600, and in my mind, I saw some really good graphics. But when I go back and look at it now, whoo, that's not what my mind saw as a boy. So a 45-year-old man would essentially have grown up as a boy playing video games. Now, back in my day when I was a kid, do you know where you went to get video games? That's right, you either went to a dedicated video game store, of which there were few, like Funkoland or Babbage's, or you visited the toy section of a popular department store. Perhaps you went to Toys R Us. You see, video games were labeled as toys, and that was a huge disservice to video games. In Japan, video games were never listed as toys. They were never considered simply the domain of children. Whereas in the United States and many other parts of the world, video games were always targeted to children and considered toys for kids. Nowadays, of course, we see there's a rating system, and many games are rated well above what we would consider a child or kid, even including ratings for adults only. Clearly, there are games for all ages, but why is it so many people find a 45-year-old man playing video games to be odd or out of place, perhaps immature? That's because the concept of video games as toys hasn't entirely been broken yet. Imagine, if you will, that you have to go to a toy store or the toy section of a department store to buy sports equipment, to get movies, to get musical instruments. Imagine if you want to play the guitar. Say you're 35, want to play the guitar, you have to go to the toy section because musical instruments are for kids. Sports are for kids. Movies are for kids. Of course, we don't think this way. Yes, there are movies for kids. Sure, there are instruments for kids. And yes, sports are for kids as well. But sports are also for adults. Movies are for adults as well. And of course, musical instruments are for all ages. So why is it that there's still this mentality, even among some younger gamers, that gaming is for kids or at least young people? Well, like I said, we still have not broken this old myth. I'm sorry, but if you think games are for kids,
You're thinking wrong.
I grew up with video games, and now that I'm an adult in my 40s, I'm still playing them because video games are just like playing an instrument, watching movies, watching sports, or playing sports. It's all for entertainment. Just because something is for entertainment doesn't mean it's for kids. It doesn't mean it's not for kids. It just doesn't mean it's only for kids. Now, some people may question whether adults should collect action figures and toys specifically marketed at children, and that's a whole nother debate of which I will not get involved. Same thing can go for comic books and other avenues of entertainment, but again, we have seen time and time again that people of all ages are enjoying these things. Granted, most people 55 and over are less likely to be playing games because think of when they were born and what was available then. Only those people who grew up with video games tend to still be playing them. If you're 55, 60, 65 years or older, not only are you not watching this channel, but you didn't grow up with video games, so you probably never played them and never got around to doing it as an adult. And if you're over the age of 55, you probably still have that false mentality that games are for kids. This is why there was such a hubbub in the 90s about how games had content not appropriate for children. Yes, of course, so do movies, songs. Lots of things have content not appropriate for kids because they're not designed for kids. But yet, in the minds of a lot of people, including congressmen and senators in the United States, they thought all games were for children. So any game with adult themes was simply inappropriate. This is an old mindset that we need to stomp out. Games are for all ages, and specifically for anyone who grew up playing them, no matter how old they are now, even if they are a 45-year-old man. Thank you so much for watching. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you here, but don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and tap that notification bell icon. And a huge thank you and shout out to Super Real Gamer Drunken Dwarf and Real Gamer Cornelius Noland. And consider joining the channel. It's as cheap as $1.99 and you get to enjoy all these special perks. Click join now. And if you want to support my channel in another way, consider picking up my novel, New Tokyo. It's available on Amazon in Kindle, Kindle Unlimited, and paperback formats. Link in the description. And, as always, my friends, for Fox's sake, stay real, keep playing, and never forget, yesterday's tomorrow is today's today.
Thing sucks!